We're Joe and Anthony Russo, directors of Marvel Studios' Avengers. Endgame. Ask us anything. As a thank you to our amazing fans, we are currently on a We Love You 3000 tour traveling across the US to show our appreciation and gratitude. Today at 3:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we're hosting a Reddit AMA for the fans at home, answering all of your questions about Avengers, Endgame and our contributions to the MCU franchise. Start sending in your questions now and we'll be back in a few hours to answer as many as we can. Ask me, us, anything.
Before we start, be sure to like and subscribe to be the first to know about new videos. Comment your answer below.
Hey Joe and Anthony Russo. Just wanted to say The Winter Soldier is one of my favorite action films ever. First question, how much of those fight scenes did you have visualized in your head or on paper when you pitched the idea for the film to Kevin Feige? Or how important were the fight scenes to your pitch? Second, how did you initially come in contact with the fight choreography stunt team for The Winter Soldier? Can you explain what the collaborative process between you and them was to create those fight sequences? Anthony? First question. Sometimes we do have a very clear idea that we want to build scene around, and sometimes it takes months working with our stunt team and visual effects team trying to figure it out. We also think about action scenes the same way we think about dialogue scenes, that we need to move the story forward or find a way to explore the characters in an essential way, or the action scene does need to be in the movie. I never thought of an action scene like that, and I love it. Hi Joe and Anthony, thank you for visiting. One of the coolest things I think you created for the MCU is Vormir. It's such a mysterious place with very little comic origin, and it really gave the Soul Stone a gravitas to it. My question for you is what the design process was like for creating Vormir, and what made you want to keep the Soul Stone as a big reveal in Infinity War, instead of having it pop up ahead of time in another movie like the other stones? Anthony? For the centerpiece of Vormir where you retrieve the stone, we referenced ruins that were used for human sacrifice as an inspiration. The choice to keep the Soul Stone out of the storytelling wasn't entirely ours, any of the other Marvel storytellers could have gone to that stone at any opponent. But we were thrilled that the stone had remained a mystery in the MCU, and that we were able to use it for such a surprising purpose. What is your favorite MCU character story arc from movies that you were not involved in making? Thank you for contributing to this masterpiece of a film franchise that has been a huge part of many people's lives over the years. Joe. At this point we have been involved with just about every character's arc in the MCU. But in respect to all of the characters that aren't Cap, I think Tony's arc is incredibly tragic and unquantifiably heroic. As a father myself, contemplating the notion of being presented with the choice of saving the universe at the cost of losing your life, and knowing that your child would lose their father, and that your wife would lose a husband, is painfully difficult to comprehend. It's a choice that only the greatest amongst us could make. One of the things I love about Tony's snap is that he didn't actually have to do it, but he did. He pulled the stones from Thanos, and maybe then he could have fought directly using the stones, or flown over and said, "Hulk snap it again," and merged the nano glove onto Hulk, or even had Thor or Carol or Cap do it. But no. He did it himself because then he wouldn't be taking the risk of losing the stones again, and he wouldn't be asking someone else to make the sacrifice. He saw the shot, and he took it, even though he knew he was going to lose himself. That's a 100% hero story. Hi guys, huge fan of your works, with multiple awkward questions. 1. Were there ever plans to have Mjolnir give Cap a suit of Asgardian-like armor? 2. Was the time skip always part of the plot of Endgame? 3. Are there any characters or plot elements you had to cut that you regret? 4. Did Infinity War ever not end with the snap? 5. How worried should I be about Skrulls? 6. How did you both transition so quickly and smoothly from shooting comedy to multi-billion-dollar action? Anthony? 1. No, Cap's shield is armor enough. 2. Yes. 3. Number 4. Number 5. Depends on how scared you are about Skrulls. 6. Action has been a favorite genre of ours for our entire lives, and we had been planning on making an action movie for a while before we found Winter Soldier. I've always found the order of the characters that come out of the portal so interesting. Do you guys have a particular explanation on the sequencing? Was there any discussion of having Bucky come out first, making him the first person Steve sees alive? Curious as to why Cap dons his Winter Soldier outfit in their first act skirmish with Thanos and why War Machine's armor in the final battle has the Iron Patriot paint on it. Can you share the kinds of discussions you guys have with the design, VFX and costume departments for creative choices like this? You guys have shown your admiration for fan art and have collaborated with Boss Logic on some cool images. The top post on this sub right now is this amazing fan-made video which I'm sure you guys seen. What are your thoughts on the creativity on the fandom, and do you guys have one favorite piece of fan art video on the MCU? Joe. We spent a lot of time in the edit room playing around with the sequencing of the portals. We probably didn't lock that section of the movie until about a month before the film was in theaters. We always wanted Sam to be the first one to communicate with Cap via his comm, and Sam was last in Wakanda, so logically the first portal that would open would the Wakandan portal. And the first person that would logically walk through a portal from Wakanda would be the king himself, bringing his army once again to the defense of Cap and the world. Can you talk about working as a duo and how that affects your process? Are there any notable disagreements you have had on the direction of a major Marvel project you've worked on, or scenes that could have been different without the other's input? Also, bonus question, who is your favorite Avenger? Anthony? Film at its essence is a collaborative art form, and that process begins for Joe with our partnership. There's this thing known as the mastermind principle that says two minds are not doubly better than one, they're exponentially better than one. And when we disagree, it's generally whether we want Indian or Italian for lunch. Can you help me everyone understand how Captain America got back to the main timeline when he returned all the stones, because it contradicts the time travel theory stated by Banner earlier in the movie. Banner said that when you go back in time you make a separate timeline, so it doesn't affect the past, but if Captain America was in a different timeline when he returned the stones, how did he back to the main timeline without the use of the quantum suits? You are correct in that he would have had to have worn the quantum suit, using a Pym particle to make the jump. He's not wearing the suit on the bench because that is not the exact moment to which he returned. My theory in the simplest possible terms: Cap lived out his life with Peggy in an alternate universe. When she passed away and he was ready to say his piece, he jumped back to the main timeline. Here he potentially lives out the rest of his days, and he could have been in the main timeline for a while sipping iced tea on a beach somewhere, whilst the snap happened. He knows the date he left the timeline as a young man and lurks around nearby. He hangs out with Bucky and the gang before passing away or even returning to his alternative timeline. As a happy footnote, the snap will never happen in the universe where his kids and grandkids live, because their version of Thanos just suddenly vanished in 2014, along with his armies. Hi Russos, I just wonder. Why didn't the Avengers kneeling before Tony scene make it into the final cut? Personally, I find it extremely emotional. Also in Infinity War, the decimated are randomly chosen, so how did Doctor Strange know for sure that Stark wasn't one of them? I hope that you guys will answer my question. Love you guys 3000. We found the Avengers kneeling scene incredibly emotional as well, but when played in the run of the film, it felt incredibly similar to the moment when all of the heroes stood on the shore at Tony's funeral, paying their respects to him outside his home. The two scenes, when in the film together, seemed to fight one another and created a repetitious ending. I loved the kneeling scene when I found out, but like you said, it would have been repetitious combined with the funeral scene immediately after. Great call. And even though you have heard this over 3000s of times and that you likely don't have time to read this, thank you to everyone at Marvel for creating a truly epic cohesive journey for everyone to escape the real world for a bit. Have a great one to everyone. You made the right choice for sure. As much as I enjoyed it as a deleted scene, the last 10 minutes of Endgame were perfect. The whole movie was perfect. What advice do you have for any young aspiring directors who want to get started? Get out your iPhone and shoot short films on it. Post those short films on YouTube. Do this as much as humanly possible because it teaches you how to tell stories and it gives you exposure. We found Donald Glover for Community because of a series of insanely hilarious comedic shorts he and his friends had shot and posted on YouTube while he was a student at NYU. How did Kevin Feige approach you two to make some of the most important movies in the MCU? Kevin, and co-president of Marvel Studios, Louis Despacito, asked us to swing by their offices while we were in post on Civil War. The conversation, in short, was, guess what? We want to make the two biggest films ever made, and we want to shoot them back to back. And we want you guys to direct them." Our response, bleep yeah. And you pulled it off. Congratulations. Hello Joe and Anthony, huge fan. If the Disney-Fox deal had gone through earlier, how many heroes would you have wanted to incorporate into Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame? Endgame felt like the culmination of every single hero and character we knew coming together to stand off against Thanos, but the Fox properties obviously weren't present. Double the amount. Could Cap always wield Mjolnir, meaning he could have picked it up in Age of Ultron and decided not to, or did he progressively get more worthy over time? Anthony? He always could. Our interpretation of the famous scene in Ultron was that when he realized he could pick up Mjolnir he quickly chose not to, because he didn't want to embarrass Thor. Hence Thor's "I knew it" cry when the moment finally happened. How did the meeting between Cap and the Red Skull go when he returned the Soul Stone after Endgame? Is there a story there and will we ever see it in a future movie? Anthony? It was probably more awkward than you imagine it was. Red Skull felt slighted because Cap didn't recognize him. Loved the movie. Just wondering how long you guys knew what Tony's fate was gonna be? Joe? We knew for about 3 years before we shot the film. I love you guys 3000. Just wanted to ask you guys a quick question that has nothing to do with Marvel. What's your comfort food? Joe? Pizza.
You have been visited by Sad Cat. Like this video and subscribe to the channel to make Sad Cat happy again.